I want to talk about something we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. And it's this subject that speaks to our identity. I want to talk about your significance, the significance that is found in who you think you are, who you know yourself to be, your identity, but that which is often hidden by shame. I want to talk about your identity, your value, your significance. And I want to talk about it in terms of what Easter does to change this. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. For some of you, shame is not a lived reality because things are working. Work, family, children, school, friends, social. It's okay. It's okay. And so you don't have kind of a day in, day out experience of shame that is crushing you, oppressing you. For some of us, that is something that on a daily basis we have to navigate. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. But let me ask you this question. I just want to start with this question. What if you lost all that you have that's going okay right now? What if you lost all that you have your identity invested in? Now, one of the things we learn very quickly about this life is that the things that this life gives us are transient and temporary. We can lose them. And so those things that are a part of this life that we are getting our identity from and have given us a degree of stability, what would happen if we lost those? What if your career, your kids, your family, your social circle were all removed for some reason? Would you know who you are? Would you know who you are? I don't want you to answer out loud. This is for you in the quietness of your heart. But if your sense of identity and worth and value are resting upon those things, I would suggest that perhaps it's more precarious than you want it to be. If you go to slide 2 for me, this is hopefully just, is it going to play? Will it play? If not, I'll leave just the image there. That's okay. So that is a moment in baseball history that haunts me. All right. It's 1986. My whole life, I had been a baseball fan. Now, I know you don't know baseball. I get it. I'm not going to have to explain it to you very much. But there was a team called the California Angels. And in Los Angeles, there were two teams. One was the California Angels. The other were the Los Angeles Dodgers. Everyone supported the Los Angeles Dodgers. They won multiple World Series. My wife laughs at me for that because there's only American teams in the World Series. But in the 1970s, I chose to support the California Angels. And in their entire existence, they had never been to the World Series. And it was a painful existence. It's similar to being a West Ham fan. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I'm identifying with you. I'm commiserating here. No one's condemning. It was painful. And so in 1986, they had an amazing team. And one of their spectacular players was the man that came in to pitch the final inning or two of the game. He's called a closer. He would pitch and try to get the final 3 outs in the final inning of a game. So 3 outs, the inning's over. And his name was Donnie Moore. He was one of the best in baseball. And he's the man in white at the left of your screen. He made millions a year. What? No, the one on the very left there. They're in gray. The Red Sox are wearing gray that year. Yes, you have. Yes. The California Angels and the Boston Red Sox were in a best-of-7 series. And it was Game 6, and the Angels were up 3 games to 2 games. And it was the final inning, and there were 2 outs, and there were 2 strikes. You see, 2 strikes is almost there, because 3 strikes and your batter's out. You getting this? You still with me? We're educational here at Canterbury Vineyard. And so He's just about to throw his specialized pitch. Now, here's the problem. They are winning 5-4, and there's a runner on base, which means they could tie the game with a base hit. But if he hits it for you cricketers, a 6 out of the stadium, then that's 2 runs, and the Red Sox take the lead. And the Angels end up behind. Donnie Moore, the best reliever in baseball. The Angels, never having been to the World Series, 1 strike away. And he throws his famous split-fingered fastball. And it just hangs there. And Dave Henderson, the man who's holding the bat, hits it over the center field fence. And the Angels lost that game and tied up the series 3-3. And they lost, like the wind was just sucked out of them. And in Game 7, they were trounced. And they didn't get close to the World Series again for 16 years.
It's just a game.
Thank you, Sam. It is just a baseball game. I deserve that. I think I'm gonna be a target for the Hammers for a while, I think. But let me turn serious, because it's just a baseball game. Donnie Moore was a millionaire. He had an amazing house. He had 3 beautiful children. He had a wonderful marriage. He had a good life. He was at the top of his profession. 1 pitch. 2 years later, Donnie Moore was dead with a gunshot wound to the side of his head. He couldn't deal with his failure, and his failure cost him his baseball career. And losing his baseball career lost him his marriage. And in the despair and the depression of his failure, he experienced what he felt like was the loss of everything. And he took his life. It is one of the most tragic stories that in sports that you can recall. But it shows us something so incredibly important this Easter Sunday morning. If you have your hope resting upon foundations that can't bear the weight of real life, your hope is precarious. This is slide 3. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was one of the new atheists back in the 90s, a Somalian woman, incredibly, just wickedly brilliant, just wonderful woman. She said this: the greatest innovation of Christianity. She is now a Christ follower. She is a Christian. She says this: the greatest innovation of Christianity was to argue that all of us, Jew or Gentile, were made in the image of God and could aspire to salvation. You say, that's the foundation that you and I were created for. You and I are made in the image of God. We are His beloved sons and daughters. And He deemed us so worthy that He came and died to save us. You are made in the image of God. She nailed it. Let me read this to you. This is slide 4. A core belief of rejection. Now, I don't know if any of you deal with that, but somewhere in there might be this belief that rejection from someone or some people or some areas of your life is who you are. A core belief of rejection is key to what we see as the non-resilience of people, the lack of hope, the lack of the ability to bounce back. The lie that I am rejectable has led many to this self-belief. And the problem with this self-belief is that it then becomes self-fulfilling. We need to reject this lie and reassign fault with those who have denied our imago Dei. That's just Latin for that we are made in the image of God. But how? How do we let go of those stories that speak over our life that we are rejectable? What I want to suggest to you, and this This is slide 5. What I want to suggest to you is that maybe for some of you, you've heard the Easter story, but the Easter story has gone something like this. Jesus died for your sins so that you could be reconnected to God. And that is absolutely true. But here's the problem. What if we experience the forgiveness of sins and get to the other side and get reconnected to God, but we don't believe what God thinks about us? Because you can have the bridge built back to reconnection, the sins removed. He washes us clean, yes, but you can still live shame-filled as a Christian. You can live on that right side filled with shame. And one really brilliant author says this: we stop at the forgiveness of our sins when God also wants to heal our shame. He wants to take the shame because that changes your identity. And when it changes your identity, it changes your life story. Without that, you cannot experience love. Because shame is the antagonist to love. It blocks it. It's the antidote. It prevents us from experiencing love. For many of you, Christianity is a theory or it's an intellectual belief. It was never meant to be merely that. It was meant to be an experienced love that redefines you, that gives you a new name, gives you a new identity, an identity that any level of rejection or failure by the things of this world cannot touch. Is anyone hungry for that this morning? Is anyone hungry for the ability to stand stable when the world is shaking? I have 3 thoughts for you this morning, and they just flow from the Easter story. 3 thoughts. And I have 17 minutes and 27 seconds to say them. And the first one is this, slide 6. Jesus bears our shame. He bears our shame. He carries our shame. Let me read this to you. This is from a theologian. Shame is at play in Jesus' death. We've all heard the story of sin, right? We've heard the sin story. I'm not so sure sin makes a lot of sense to many of our friends out there who aren't attending Easter services this week. It's not a concept that makes a terrible lot of sense. But shame is. And shame is at play in Jesus' death. You see, crucifixion was a form of capital punishment invented not only to slowly torture someone, but also to publicly shame them. Reserved for the scum of society like rebels, slaves, and outcasts, crucifixion stripped its victims of their clothes as well as their dignity. In their accounts, criminals were hung naked, arms stretched out, alone, along busy Roman roads to be taunted and mocked as they struggled for breath, while vultures and vermin gnawed at their near lifeless bodies. I'm sorry if that's a bit grotesque and PG-13 for you this morning, but actually the crucifixion is a horror. And here's the thing, and this is slide 7. Jesus was crucified naked. He always has a pleasant loincloth in the movies. Historically, that's not true. Historically, that's not true. Why? When the gospel writers tell the story in this way, they show us that on the cross, Jesus bore our shame. He not only bore our sins, but he bore our shame. He was stripped naked. And this was an indicator of bearing Adam's shame from the Garden of Eden. He had to be. Because when Adam and Eve rebelled and chose to take life into their own hands and say, I'm the master of my own fate, I'm the captain of my own soul, what happened was they realized all of a sudden they were naked, and the scriptures say they were ashamed, and so they hid themselves. Jesus is put on that cross and stripped of all dignity, hangs there naked. And in so doing, reverses that moment of loss with Adam and Eve. It's a powerful, powerful picture that for many of us might be fresh. I wasn't told this a lot. I wasn't told that that's the way they crucified people. You see, shame is right at the center of Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And he was mocked as a pretender king. The cross wasn't just punishment. He took our guilty verdict. It was public humiliation, meant to devalue Jesus' personhood and smear his reputation. Yet as the Gospels make clear, he who was lifted up in mockery was truly being enthroned in honor and glory. He, the most significant one of all, chose to identify with the shamed and the excluded. See, that's really, really important for us to understand. He was the one that had no shame. And he comes and he says, I'm going to take your shame on myself. I'm going to identify with you in your brokenness, in your failure, in your humiliation, in the way that society does not include you. I'm going to experience that with you. He chose to identify with the shamed. He chose to identify with the excluded. Jesus challenged the false cultural practices of social exclusion to the point of death. You know that there are rules, right? There are sociological rules wherever we go. What's appropriate, what's inappropriate. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I want to ask you the question. Who among you sometimes gets those wrong and feels awkward? Yeah? I know I do. I do a lot. And there's something that just kind of squeezes you into a mold. Do you ever feel that in society? It just squeezes you into a mold. And it doesn't say, no, your laugh is way too loud, but it's beautiful. I can find you anywhere in a grocery store. Right? Or you like clothes that are so peculiar. But you know what? That's your style. And it's so you. And it makes me happy. You see, society does just the opposite. And Jesus challenges all of those false sociological templates that crush us into a mold. Jesus bore shame to communicate God's costly love, whether eating with tax collectors or dying on a cross. Have you ever had someone vouch for you in a social situation? I don't know if you could think of anything like this, but where you had someone who had real status and you didn't so much. And they went, yeah, this is my boy or this is my girl. And vouch for you and give you access. I think that's Jesus in bearing our shame is doing that. He's vouching for us. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I didn't have much status, but there was one guy, he was a year older, and he had proper status. And I wanted to run for student council. And so I went up to him and I said, hey, listen, I know you don't know me, but I would love if you would let me call you my campaign manager and introduce me at the election day assembly. And he said, yes. He said, yeah, sure. And he stood up there and he said, I want to recommend to you my friend Jim. He didn't know me. I wasn't his friend. I never spoke a conversation with him ever again. But he vouched for me, and I won. And you see, there's something about Easter that I want you to understand. Those of you who experience that sense of shame that challenges your identity, your value, your worth, your significance, I want you to know that he calls you a different name. He calls you beloved. He vouches for you. Jesus gave up his own status and honor to include the excluded and shamed. God does not stand with the shamers. He comes not as a judgmental God. This is one of the most significant revelations that you can have in your life. God, the one who is holy, 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 comes not to wag his finger at us, but to sweep us up in his arms. He stands not with the shamers, but with the shamed. He stands not with the shamers. He stands with the shamed. And I don't care what the church communicated to you. That's not your God. Your God stands not with the shamers, but with the shamed. And the second one I want to give you is this. Jesus breaks the power of our shame. Not only does he bear it, but he breaks it. I want you to go to slide 10 for me. This little story here is amazing. Let me read it to you. This is Judge Marcus, and he has little Anna on his lap. Because of Jesus, shame no longer has any rightful power over people. Anna says, I'm scared of him, refusing to take the witness stand. The judge nodded, then did something no one in the courtroom had ever seen. It was the hardest part of the trial. 5-year-old Anna was the only witness to a domestic violence incident that had put her mother in the hospital. Now she was in a large, intimidating courtroom, and her father was staring at her from the defendant's table. She refused to move. She just hid behind the prosecutor, shaking, I can't. And she cried, he'll see me. And the prosecutor was about to ask for a recess when the judge, a man known for his stern demeanor, called for a brief pause. He stepped down from his high bench and walked over to the little girl and knelt. What's your name, sweetheart? His voice suddenly soft. Anna, she whispered. Well, Anna, I'm Judge Marcus. This is my courtroom, and in here I'm the boss. And my number one rule is that no one gets to be scary in here. Not even him. I won't let him. And he pointed to the witness stand. That chair looks big and lonely, doesn't it? She nodded. How about you and I go sit up there together? You can sit on my lap. I'm a good shield. He held out his hand, and she took it. And the judge sat in the witness stand, holding Anna securely in his arms, his black robe acting like a protective cape. Shielded by the one man in the room more powerful than her father, she finally found her small, brave voice and told the court what she saw. My friends, at Easter, that's us. That's us. Slide 11, please. In Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews says this amazing statement. Verse 2, Hebrews 12, verse 2. We look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising. Now, what that means is not intimidated by, despising the shame. He knew that this was about humiliating him. He knew that all the forces of hell were trying to vandalize his physical earthly body with all of its might. And he was not intimidated. He walked into it for the joy set before him. And now here's the important thing, guys. All of those things that intimidate us, all of that shame that crushes us and oppresses us and depresses us, I want you to know that he was not intimidated. He walked into it. He took it and now is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. This is the story of Easter. As he walked out of that grave, all of the chains of shame that were binding us were wrapped around him, and he simply did, and they snapped. They lost their power. They broke, and they can break for you and me because he took them and he broke them. He couldn't have broken them if he hadn't taken them. The church fathers had a saying. They said, that which Jesus did not assume, he could not heal. That which Jesus did not take upon himself, he couldn't have healed. And so he took our shame and he took it upon himself. And he came to reverse the cross of the fall. This is slide 12. Galatians 3, 13 to 14 says this. Christ redeemed us, meaning he set us free from slavery, from the curse of the law and its condemnation, by becoming a curse for us. He took it all on himself. For it is written, cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree. My friends, Jesus was lowered into a molten bath of shame, humiliation, degradation, and disgust. And then he rose out of that tomb on Easter Sunday and ascended to the ultimate place of glory and honor at the right hand of the Father. He broke it. Shame no longer has a legal right over you if you will receive what Jesus has done for you. But that's not all. My final thing is this. Not only does he break the power of shame, but he bestows us with honor. You see, as he ascended to the right hand of glory, and he was glorified as the one who chose to come and make a way, he chooses to invite us into that glory and make it our identity now. We're not the washed ones. We are the ones who are seated with him. The cross liberates people from shame by displaying Jesus' commitment to their new identity. Shame's not your identity. It might be a struggle. It's not your identity because of Jesus. Because Jesus was not held back. He broke those chains of shame. And you can now enter into what he has gone before you and enabled. And it is this. You are the beloved child of God. Romans chapter 8, verse 15 through 17. Slide 14. So you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Amen. Instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Do you understand that's what happens when you yield your life and you go, you're my hope. You're my foundation. You're the one that gives my life meaning and purpose and shape and structure. Instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Now, because of that, we can call him Abba Father. For his Spirit joins with our spirit to affirm, to communicate to us that we are in fact his children. And if we are his children, we are also his what? Heirs. We're not the servants in the castle. We're in the will. You know? Anyone watch Succession? Has anyone watched that? They're fighting like crazy to get to be the heir. I want you to turn to the person next to you and tell them, you're an heir. You don't have to fight. You don't have to stab your brother in the back. You're an heir. Not only has he broken the power of shame, but he has bestowed you with a new name. And that name is beloved son, beloved daughter, and heir. Let me read that again. The cross breaks the power of shame, but it also provides us with a new identity. We are children of God, and as children, we are heirs. So my question to you is this. Will we identify with him who identified with us? And in so doing, will we know his honor? Or will we continue to entrust our reality to this world system of shame, crushing? Will we choose to allow what he's done to set us free and give us a new name?